Hey guys, I'm Saurav, and in this video I am going to talk about metering modes. So before talking about metering modes, let me tell you how the camera sees a particular object. So the light which hits the object is the incident light, and the light which is reflected from the object is the reflected light. And the cameras can actually only see the reflected light, and it guesses the exposure according to the reflected light. So the exposure that is calculated by the cameras are not always proper. You might have seen that your images sometimes turn out to be bright or dark. That is because the camera is not able to get a proper exposure. That is where the metering mode comes into play. There are different metering modes which help the camera to meter the light and guess the exposure. Now for different lighting situations, different metering modes are used. So in this video, I will be talking about all the three metering modes that are present in the cameras. The first metering mode is the evaluative metering or the matrix metering. Now the name might differ according to the camera brands, but it works in the same manner. Talking about matrix metering, it is the default option which is set in all the cameras. So matrix metering has different zones which is spread throughout the frame. Every zone calculates its corresponding exposure, and then all the exposures are averaged out to reach a final exposure calculation. Now the calculation is not very simple, it's very complex and it depends on different camera companies. We don't have to concentrate on that. The only thing we have to focus is in matrix metering, each part of the frame corresponds to the exposure calculation. So matrix metering works great when the scene is evenly lit, and I set my metering mode to matrix metering mode 90% of the times, and it works great for me. So if the lighting situation is not very complex, the matrix metering mode is going to be the safe option and you should use it. And if you're finding any problems, then you should change your metering mode. In matrix metering mode, the zone which contains your focus point will be given a high priority for the exposure calculation. So it's assumed to be a very intelligent metering mode. The second metering mode is the center weighted metering mode. As the name suggests, the center is given the higher priority. All the surrounding areas and all the corners are ignored for the exposure calculation. Now there is a circle in the center, and only that circle is considered while calculating the exposure. The size of the circle again depends on different camera companies. So the center weighted metering should be used when the subject is in the center and you want the subject to be properly exposed irrespective of the background being bright or dark. So in complex lighting, the matrix metering doesn't work well. The center weighted metering will be more accurate and will be a safer option if the center has to be given more priority while calculating the exposure. Now if the subject is not in the center, you can still use this metering mode. What you can do is place the subject in the center, take the exposure reading and then recompose your shot and take the image, and you will get a proper exposure. The last metering mode is the spot metering mode. Now again, as the name suggests, the spot metering mode only works for a particular spot. So depending on your focus point, it will only consider that particular spot for exposure calculation. This spot metering mode is a very restrictive and a very accurate metering mode. And this mode should only be used when your subject takes a very small amount of space and you want your subject to be properly exposed irrespective of the background and the foreground. So even if your subject is in a very complex lighting situation, it will only consider the focus point. So you don't have to worry about the bright or dark environment. So these are the types of metering modes that you can use to tell your camera what is a proper exposure. Now the question is, which metering mode should we use? It depends on the lighting situations. If it's a very evenly lit situation, matrix metering is your go-to option. If the lighting situation is complex and you want to focus on the center, obviously the center weighted metering is going to work. And if the lighting is furthermore complex and you only want to focus on the spot, again, spot metering is going to work for you. I cannot give you a definite answer for what situation, what metering mode should be used. It's actually a trial and error, but I can give you certain tips, okay? If the metering mode doesn't work for you, you take the image and then see the histogram. Doesn't matter what your metering mode is. If your histogram tells you have got a proper exposure, then you have nailed it. So irrespective of your metering mode, your histogram is going to be your best friend to see what exposure you have captured. Now there's a misconception. People say that metering mode doesn't work in manual mode. It only works in automated and semi-automated modes like aperture priority, shutter priority or program mode. Actually, it's not right. In manual mode, when you're trying to get the correct exposure, you're trying to be at proper 0. And depending on your metering mode, it will change. So the metering mode also matters when you're shooting in manual mode. That's it for this video, guys. I hope you understood what metering mode is and how it should be used and why does it matter so much. If the video helped you, press the like button. If you loved it and haven't subscribed to the channel, you know what you have to do. I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.